Welcome back, everyone, to the PB&J podcast. We have a special episode for you this evening. This is going to be something new. We're going to be sort of responding to a video that was put out by Spencer Smith. He is a fellow YouTuber. He has a pretty big following. Normally, I wouldn't draw attention to videos like this, but because he is a voice that a lot of people listen to, so that was a reason, that this caught my eye. I'm also subscribed to him. And this was a video he made talking about Ash Wednesday, which we just we just observed yesterday. I just want to say something before we get into this as we sort of work through this together. I've seen this already. Jordan has not, so this ought to be interesting
So
for sure.
you're going to get like a thoughtful reaction, and then you're going to get just like whatever happens with me. So it'll be really interesting to see. Yeah. Ben gave me some heads up on what I'm looking into, what I'm getting into, and I'm a little nervous. Just a little nervous. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it ought to be good. But just as a disclaimer at the beginning, this is not intended to make fun of Spencer Smith or to
That's
talk
true.
down about him or, say anything about his character. We don't do ad hominem. We like to discuss ideas. And so we're just responding to the ideas that are discussed in this video. And all right, I guess spoiler alert. We're not really going to agree with the video. So make of that what you will. But yeah, whatever. Let's just start.
The people of Israel had a struggle. They're trying to serve the God of Israel, but they're surrounded by a culture that is worshiping something else, a Babylonian religion, strange religion. And there was a clash there, and oftentimes they were tempted to merge that religion of Babylon with their religion.
Sorry, I just want to pause it right there. I do like the point he's making here. This is called syncretism for anyone who's curious, where you just sort of like blend multiple religious beliefs together. So,
but today's Ash Wednesday, and what you're going to see in public, you're going to see a lot of Catholic people with a ashen T or a cross, as they say, or an X, if you will, on their forehead.
It's not debatable. It's a cross.
Enter into Lent for 40 days leading up to Easter, and so. I remember the first time I actually saw that, I was up in Illinois preaching at a Baptist church up there, and before service was getting started, I had about an hour to kill, and I was hungry, so I went to Subway, and there was these ladies sitting at a table with this big cross on their forehead. And out of my ignorance, I just went up and asked them. I said, "Now, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but what is that on your forehead?" She said, "Oh, it's Ash Wednesday." And I didn't know what that was. I had no idea. So went and looked it up and found out that they put a cross on your forehead to commemorate Jesus' temptation and such like that.
Let's wait. What? Time out. Okay, hold on. So
yeah.
I want to know how old you okay, I have a lot of questions. And this is not a character check. I'm a little surprised that like you come from a religious tradition and your first exposure in your entire life is when you're old enough to preach at a service in a different state from where I'm from Indiana. That is definitely not an Illinois accent. He 100% ain't from Illinois. No offense, dude. You don't sound like a Midwesterner. You definitely sound like a Southerner when you say Louisiana. Yeah. But and that's not a dig. This is what it is. But like, here's my thing though. Like how do you not how is that new to you? There like some fairly large denominations do this. Like I didn't even grow up in the Church of the Nazarene. I didn't go there until I was in high school. And the tradition that I came from before that didn't celebrate Ash Wednesday, but I was aware of it because I went to public school. Like I'm not trying to be like that is mind-boggling to me that this is the first time you've seen people do this. I know that's not relevant to his point, and I hope that's not. We can cut this if it sounds mean, but I think what?
I mean, I know in the South, like, I don't know if there's a lot of Catholicism down there. I know it's very heavily like Baptist and Reformed, like the whole Bible Belt thing. But yeah, I was surprised by that too. Like, yeah, like how have you not even heard of that? Well, especially also like I would assume he went to school, like to learn about preaching and ministry and stuff. Was
Yeah.
that not ever something that was touched on in like church history or anything like that, like church practice?
Yeah. But I mean, like, these are big mainline denominations, right? You have Roman Catholics, Anglicans, Lutherans, Methodist. I Googled this: Methodists, Moravians, Nazarenes, and some independent Catholics. And then even some of like the more Reformed traditions that you were talking about. So Presbyterians, United Protestants, Continental Reformed, and Congregationalists.
Hmm.
Those do have a Southern presence. Like, what? Sorry. I just am like really like surprised. Like, that's super
Yeah.
surprising to me.
Oh, it
I
is
don't know.
surprising. Yeah.
It's so weird to me, like how your location, like your birth location, your residence as a kid, like how much that impacts like
Hmm.
how you see things. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I just was like, what? Sorry, that's a shock. I know this. Like Ben actually has real points to say. I'm just gonna be like sitting here flabbergasted. So just
No, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
so all right. Anyway, we should keep going. We should keep going.
Tammuz apparently, as the pagan history says, lived to be 40 years old, was slain by a pig sometime around this time. And so Semiramis, when Tammuz died, she apparently declared 40 days of fasting and weeping for Tammuz. And so this basic idea of religion was passed on to all different types of cultures throughout history. You see here that the Greek, you have the unholy trinity of the Greek mythology here: Zeus, Hera, and Ares, which is another name of Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. You also see that the Egyptians basically had the same religion. There's Osiris, there's Isis, and then there's Horus. And Isis is the name of Semiramis from Egypt. And then also here's the European version of it. It was Odin, Frigga, and Thor.
Mm,
Yeah.
uh, I don't
I
know if I
mean,
buy that.
well, it's also like such a poor reduction of those religions. It sounds really like he's cherry picking. He's like, well, this god kind of looks like this other god kind of looks like this one, therefore they must be related. Like,
So I mean, maybe. Yeah, no, you're probably not wrong. I don't want to the man sounds like he's done his homework, so like that is a legitimate like compliment to him. I'm a little skeptical.
yeah.
Like I don't know a lot about Greek mythology. I've just read the Iliad and the Odyssey,
Hmm.
and that was a while ago. But I just it from what I know of like Eastern Near Eastern religions and like the Roman Empire and like Greek mythology in general and how like Rome would have adopted it. And really I think ultimately where he's gonna have to go, especially when you start talking about like Greece and Rome, is that like Greece and Rome in particular were pretty imperial. So like they let you bring in your gods, but like they still recognize, well, at least Rome for sure recognized theirs. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like so like I guess it's hard to like say they're the same because I just don't even know that like a Roman or Greek person, and I do conflate those cultures to an extent, which is probably not fair.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone does.
Yeah, I'm conflating because Romans saw themselves as a continuation, or at least early Roman saw themselves as a continuation of the Grecian Empire of Alexander the Great. But that's neither here nor there. My whole point is simply this: that like they established this great empire. Maybe there's some overlap there, but like for the most part, like traveling was really hard. So these ideas would be really hard to share from how I understand the
Hmm.
history of the world at this point in time, especially in this area. And although Babylon was a powerful empire, I'm fairly confident they were rivaling Greece, right? And they were like opposing Greece. So like I guess I just am a little skeptical on this claim because I don't really know where it's coming from. But like I'm also not going to tell you that like I'm way right on this because
Hmm.
like I mean, this dude produced a documentary, so he had to do some kind of research. I mean, it's possible he pulled it out of nowhere, but I don't know. For the most part, he seems too well spoken to do that. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt and say I'm probably off on this one, but I don't know. It just seems weird. Am I
Yeah.
okay saying that? It just
Yeah.
seems weird.
Although I will say this, in a recent uh, episode that I did going over Genesis, I actually did a decent amount of looking into the Egyptian religion, especially the ancient Egyptian religion. Like, and I'm still not sure what exactly his point is here, even though I've already watched this. Like, is he saying that okay, Nimrod had relations with Semiramis and gave birth to Tammuz. Therefore, every religion that has something like that is derivative of Babylonian belief. That seems to be what he's saying here. That doesn't make sense to me
Wouldn't
because
wouldn't the
Osiris.
Egyptians predate that?
Yeah, I think the Egyptians either predate it or it's like around the same time. But but yeah, the Egyptian. I mean, it's also tough to just call it Egyptian because, like, you have different. Essentially, you have different pantheons of gods in different cities in Egypt, and like there's like tons of Egyptian gods, and yeah, a lot of them have relations with one another. Then they produce other gods, but it's like, so this seems like a stretch. This really seems like a stretch to me. So like, oh well, Osiris had relations
Well,
with
yeah.
Isis and gave birth to Horus, therefore it's the derivative of Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't. You're gonna have to make a
Spin-
stronger connection than
yeah.
that.
Yeah, or at least be a little bit more thorough. And part of it is I don't mean this to be big, but in some extent, he's doing what we do. He's plugging his stuff.
Yeah.
I'm actually really interested in watching this doc now because I want to know what he's talking about. Spencer, if you ever watch this video or listen to this podcast, like for real, like I'll try to go back and watch it, understand it. But if you would be willing to like share with us, like via like some kind of social media reach out, like what you're getting at here and like explain it in detail, like I really want to know. Like I genuinely want to know because I want to definitely. I want a dialogue about that. Not necessarily like we don't have to have like a video conversation or podcast, but like I want to know what you're getting at because it is interesting to me and I'm curious to see the connection. I'm just failing to see it, probably because I haven't watched the doc, and two because I'll be honest, man, it's been a long time since since I read Mesopotamian history, particularly about religion. So it's been a while, but yeah, I don't know. That's my shout out to Spencer. I got to say he's really easy to listen to. He's got a really good radio voice.
He
Like my
does.
man, like he's the kind of guy that has a syndicated radio show. I don't know if it's a syndicated radio show that I listen to because I don't really listen to syndicated radio show. I'm a millennial, so,
Mhm.
so I listen to podcasts. But Spencer, if you got a podcast, like I low key might pop in because like I think I could learn some things from you. So another shout out to this guy. I don't know if he's ever gonna watch this or if this will get back to him, but I don't know.
If it does,
You
I
know,
mean, yeah,
I'm gonna give the guy credit. Like I'm not putting this up to bash his video. I'm using it as a
yeah.
talking point, but like
Like he's definitely not like ignorant. Like
no,
he's done homework for sure.
my man knows what he's talking about. I'm just trying to. I just want to understand a little more because I'm
Yeah.
not what I've learned in the past.
Mhm.
I hope I didn't offend you, Spencer, if you do ever hear this about the first time seeing Ash Wednesday. It just still blows my mind, but I guess it is a regional thing, you know. The best part about this podcast is that we're waiting for Ben to tell us what's going on because he's actually watching the talk right now.
Sorry. Okay, so his connection is Osiris was the Egyptian god of the sun, which Nimrod was also the god of the sun in Babylonian culture. Semiramis was the goddess of the moon in Babylonian culture, and so was Isis. Actually, Isis, was she the goddess of the moon? I think it was a lot more than that.
Well, yeah.
Anyways, and then Horus is, they represent the same thing essentially. Tammuz is representative of some celestial body. Horus is too, or something like that. That's the only connection he makes. So
This is from Wikipedia.org, simplewikipedia.org. Isis is the goddess in Egyptian mythology is known as the goddess of the moon, as goddess of life and magic. She protected women and children and healed the sick. Sister wife of Osiris, and had a son named Horus. If that's what he's okay, yeah. So we're on somewhat the same page.
yeah. Of course, this sort of goes back to correlation does not equal causation, and it's like, yeah, you could say these things are related, but I mean, yeah, and a lot of ancient religions did sort of mimic one another in some ways, but that's really not that much of a stretch to make when you're dealing with religions that have dozens of gods. Like you're gonna find some similarities. That's
It's
not,
interesting.
yeah. So
I
this
okay. I'm
this
gonna
to me doesn't
speculate
sound
for
very
1 second.
convincing, but
Can I speculate? Like, I want to know, like, do you think he's advocating that, like, there is, and this is something that I don't know, Ben, maybe he'll get to this. Maybe we should, I don't know. But do you think he's advocating that, like, these pagan religions are the same work of the same, like, false deception from, like, I'm assuming he's going to make a case just based on some of his biblical comments and some of the, like, points he's already made about Babylonian culture and, like, the way we interact with culture as Christians. Like, I don't know. There's a taste in my mind and a thought of a type of Christian that does this. I'm sounding so bad, but like part of me wonders if he's going to make a case for like a dualism type religion in Christianity, which I think is wrong, but it is what it is. Where like you have like the evil world, right? Where like we have like an emphasis on like Satan and his power and like the evil force he's going to do. And I wonder if he's making a tie. And you'll have to answer this because you listened to a little bit of the doc if you mentioned it. Like that all pagan religions have these commonalities because they're just different repetitive lies from like Satan over time. I don't know. Do you think he's saying something like that? I don't know.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Okay, cool.
In the documentary, that's how he frames it. You have he calls it the true religion, and I forget if he calls it the false religion or the world religion. But yeah, you basically have Christianity, and then everything else is the same thing. So it all comes from the
Huh.
same source. So that's the connection
I
he draws. So that's the
Okay.
perspective he's
All right.
coming from. So yeah, you're right. So this makes a little
I
bit more sense in terms of like where he's coming from.
Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north. And behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Do you see that right there? They were weeping for Tammuz. And that's what they did. When Tammuz died, she declared 40 days of weeping for him. Verse 15, then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these.
He definitely knows his way around the Bible. I give him a lot of credit for that. And also, this is just a nerd thing for me. I love when you get a sense of like the culture, like when you're reading scripture and you have references like that. I was not aware of that reference to Tammuz in Ezekiel before this video. And now that, I mean, I do feel he does a good job explaining like the background of like Nimrod, Tammuz, and Semiramis. I think he does a really good job doing that. And I have been educated. So thanks, Spencer.
And that really has always been the attempt of paganism, is to try to merge with Christianity.
Wait. He's claiming that the intent, though, of all pagan religions, based on the comments we previously made, is to always merge with Christianity.
Yes, which seems opposite actually of history. But yeah, like that's the thing. Paganism doesn't really care about Christianity.
Well, I
don't know.
Well, I mean, like, if you argue that like if paganism is similar to secularism,
Yeah.
anyway, it's similar to that, and like we're moving more toward that, like that's a legit argument. Like it's fair. Like, yeah, we're less quote unquote Christian than we were in some sense, you know.
Mhm.
If you're arguing like that, I don't know. I just feel like all right. So I have a family member that at one point in his life practiced Wiccanism.
Mhm.
That was
Wicca?
yeah, is that what they're called? If you practice Wiccan, do you practice Wiccan? They believe in Wiccan.
I think it's called Wicca, and then if you practice it, you're a Wiccan.
Got it. He was a Wiccan. There we go. And he practiced Wicca. And like for him, like the truth claims of Christianity were fairly arbitrary, you know, because his worldview is a little different. So like I don't know. I always feel like when you like say I don't know. It's really hard for me to conceptually wrap my head around the idea that like paganism wants to synthesize with Christianity. They probably just don't care, and like they're like, yeah. So like syncretism would make sense because not all pagan claims are making like exclusivist claims. Like there's a thing called Christian exclusivism, right? Like it's a soteriology. It's a religious like salvific. I'm making up words like crazy, dude.
No,
It's a belief in salvation that like says that there's a specific way to come to like Christ, right? Like there's a specific way we become Christian versus like an inclusivist championed by Catholics and Karl Rahner in the 20th century, like became a more popular movement. But like the exclusivist, which is subtly what the argument he's making here, like I don't think that's mirrored in pagan cultures and any other religion that may not be Islam. I just like, you know what I mean? Like they don't approach salvation the same way because they don't have the same. Well, it's simple. They don't have the same worldview. They don't have the same like assumptions. They don't have the same beliefs.
They don't have the same moral like impetus or like the same perspective.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of a red herring. I don't disagree, but I don't really know what you're arguing.
Yeah,
It's a straw man. That's the word I'm looking for. Dude, I'm struggling with these words.
it's fine.
Great to be on a podcast.
On Tuesday, they partied like there was no tomorrow. That's what Mardi Gras is.
Shout out to New Orleans for doing Yardi Gras this year, where they all did it in the yards and distance. I thought that was really clever. Anyway, strictly for the branding was really well done. Anyway,
which Lent is a time where they fast or they give up something that like they give up cussing or they give up drinking or they give up meat for 40 days. That
Wait,
is not Christianity.
I mean it
You don't find
is,
that in the
but okay.
Bible. You just don't. It's not there. So what is this? Why are they doing this?
You 100% though definitely find fasting in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, that is not debatable.
Like,
That's like
yes.
Cross that's on their forehead? That's not a cross. You know what that is? That's the letter T. And it's a weeping for Tammuz. That's where they got that. You say, well, that's crazy.
Yes, a little bit. So he just argued that it's not a cross; it's the letter T for Tammuz. Which, all right,
that's
let me break this down a
impossible.
little bit just to show that that's a bit of a ridiculous claim. So Tammuz, Tammuz, which is how I found it to be spelled, is a transliteration because obviously the original language that the name Tammuz comes from wasn't English, it was Akkadian, which is a very ancient and dead language. Um, so, so if it was supposed to be a stand-in for Tammuz, it wouldn't be the English letter T, it would be the Akkadian letter of whatever that looks
That
like.
makes the
But
tuss sound.
yeah, but okay, but let's assume. Oh no, it's a T because it's localized to our language. Well, then if that's the case, then why do Christians in Asia and in European countries and in African countries and everywhere else that don't use the English alphabet, why are they putting an English letter on their forehead to symbolize Tammuz? Wouldn't it be their own local alphabet with that sound or that letter? Like that just doesn't make sense. Because this whole thing is Ash Wednesday came from Catholicism, but if that's the case, then the Catholic Church didn't start using English predominantly in their liturgy until what, Vatican II?
Yeah, it was 1960.
Yeah, so it would have been Latin that people would be putting on their foreheads if that was the case, like the Latin pronunciation of it, right? Like I
I
would
mean, I would.
assume, like that would make
Yeah,
sense. But also the Latin T has two horizontal lines, not one. So this is definitely an English writing, if it is a letter. So so it's a stretch. I'll say that it's a bit of a stretch to say that that's the letter T. Oh boy, no,
and even the Catholic Church themselves on their own website does affirm that it represents the cross, not a T. But
yeah, but
again,
that's the thing. Like that's the point he's making. Is basically it doesn't matter what the intention is. It doesn't matter what the current context or what the current practice is. It has roots in a pagan practice. Therefore, everything about it's pagan. And by participating in Ash Wednesday, you are actually participating in a Babylonian uh, observation of worshiping Tammuz, which, if that's the case, then the same logic could be applied to other things. Like, okay, like let's say people like to sing along to the theme song of Civilization 4. For those who don't know, the theme song for Civilization 4 is the
I love
Lord's
that game.
Prayer in Swahili, like it's the Swahili language. And I know a lot of people who love that song and love singing it that aren't Christian. So, but that song is the Lord's Prayer. So are we saying that they're all offering a prayer, even if they're not even Christian? Or maybe a more relevant example would be going to a pool, pushing everybody in, and saying, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Does that mean that they're all baptized? Because, I mean, the logic he's working with is it has the appearance of something else, therefore, that's what it is. Well, I mean, this, am I wrong? Like, that seems to be sort of the what he's doing.
I think that's what he's arguing. To be honest, I don't know if he's got to his point yet. So it's hard to. If that is his point, I don't I don't see it. I don't know. I'm trying really hard to be like, because I don't want, like, I don't know, like, he's done his homework, so
Yeah.
like there's a tie there. I'm just not getting it. So either I'm really dumb, which is a definite possibility,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe he hasn't quite made it yet, or maybe there is a flaw in the logic and it seems to not follow. I personally, right now, it's not following to me. I'm just trying to be generous,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely giving me some smacks of that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
If I'm being blunt, you know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know how
And
to
like
say.
I'm just saying, like the logic so far of what he's saying is it seems to be in that direction. Like if we were to stop the video here, that would be the logic he's working with. That's what it seems like to me.
It says there in verse number 16, and their faces were towards the east, and they worshiped the sun towards the east. And I want to give you something to think about. Maybe you had never have thought about it before. But have you ever noticed the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah.
You know that statue that was given to us by French people?
Really don't like
The
the French.
same French
Those darn
people
French.
that had a temple to Isis there in Paris, and then they changed the name to Notre Dame.
You mean
Those
the Catholic Church took it
people
over?
Gave
Question
us
mark?
a statue in America. What direction is that statue facing?
No.
Stop it. Get some help.
It's a good question. Could it be facing east?
Uh-oh.
Why would it do
It's
that?
Babylonian.
Well, some would say, well, it's because all the immigrants coming from Europe. Oh, well,
Yes.
that's possible,
No, like
but
literally
could be another
yes.
reason.
What?
But also like
But, like,
statues always face outwards. Like it wouldn't make any sense for a statue to face inland. Like that's just a weird claim to make. But yeah, like his whole thing is like it faces east, so I guess it's representative of Babylonian worship of Tammuz.
So like why are we can you explain to me why we're cherry picking on the French? Like why we're really picking on the French? Like I don't have a beef with the French. They're there. They exist. Like
Okay, so I think
I don't like Americans.
it's because the French
I don't like them much either.
had a temple to Isis,
But
and so
this is
they
the
are
Catholic issue.
inherently corrupted by pagan worship.
Well,
I think.
literally the entire United States was filled with Native American tribes that we pushed out that were worshiping to the same theoretical pagan god. You know what? Let's just keep going. This is
Notice verse number 19. It says, and we burned incense to the Queen of Heaven, poured out drink offerings unto her. Then did we make her cakes to worship her.
Oh no,
Do you notice that right there?
cakes are
No.
evil.
You ever heard of the old song "Hot Cross Buns"?
Hot
I
crust
remember when I was
buns
a
is
kid, they used
pagan
to make us
worship.
Play that on the recorder in public school. Hot cross buns. I would say that this is a religious practice out of Mystery Babylon, weeping for Tammuz.
It's a pretty big stretch, but sure.
Something interesting to look at. That's not a cross on your forehead, ma'am. That's a T for Tammuz.
Go up to the next Catholic person and say that to their face.